and put before courts of law to make sure once we take cases there, we take cases to court, they are fast-tracked and we get an immediate outcome.
The government is committed to protecting vulnerable groups and improving their living conditions with focus on economic empowerment. During the launch of the Women Economic Empowerment Advocacy Coalition in Nairobi, stakeholders called for concerted efforts in empowering women. And as the world marks the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, various organizations have come together to champion for the rights of victims, many of whom are women and girls. To help further the agenda of women, they have been challenged to leverage on their numbers and seek elective positions.
This is such an important coalition. It's an important launch because we know that the economic empowerment of women has a transformative effect, not just for the country, but also at the household level. Because when women are economically empowered, it gives them opportunity for more choices, but they also invest in family. They invest in community. We know that a woman's concept of self is bigger than the individual, so it makes sense to economically empower women. We also know with the advent of COVID, women have really been hit hard with exclusion, economic exclusion, because of their loose association with the labor market. So part of the strategy is also ensuring that we have advocacy that is based on facts and research. We know that one of the key drivers of violence is economic disempowerment, the exclusion of women, the lack of choices that they have. So the constraints that come with a lack of economic freedom really does drive gender-based violence, also constricting women's choices. So through economic empowerment and their economic emancipation, women have more choices, better choices. You have more income at the household level so that it alleviates household pressures and hopefully also brings down the incidences of domestic violence or gender-based violence.
In economic empowerment, what we are targeting is to ensure that there is inclusivity. And inclusivity brings in people with disability or families that have children with disability so that we are able to improve their economic status to be able to take care of their children. Children with disability require a little bit of extra care, and that means funding. So other than the women economic empowerment, we are equally looking into government policies that ensure that there's inclusivity. We are looking at the coalition, the advocacy coalition, being the instrument that will foster that joint and collaborative initiatives and engagements to ensure that we have policies, and within those policies they're actually addressing issues on women economic empowerment. A number of policies, a number of pieces of legislation exist, but then their adequacy is there are gaps that we've noted as an organization, and that is why we have the research partners partnering with the research institutions, Kenyatta University and the likes that are around here, to ensure that we get grassroots evidence.
And still on gender activism, as the world marks 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, a number of counties in Kenya have joined the campaigns by launching initiatives aimed at sensitizing communities on gender-based violence. In Samburu County, Deputy Governor Julius Liseto urged the residents to ensure women, men and children are protected from gender-based violence. The campaign in Samburu seeks to empower communities to make the right choices for families still under the yoke of retrogressive practices such as child marriage and female genital mutilation.
Ni siku mzuri kwetu pia kueneza habari, kueleza ya kwamba sisi tukomeshe dhuluma ya kijinsia, kwa sababu pia serikali yetu imekubali kuisimamisha kwa sheria na pia kuelimisha watu.
And therefore, through these 16 days of gender activism, we will be sensitizing the members of community, the members of Samburu community on the forms of gender-based violence.
From the gender agenda to education matters, where the government has embarked on the process of identifying and recruiting human capital to facilitate successful implementation of the competency-based curriculum. This in addition to scaling up the infrastructure needed for learners to transition from primary to junior secondary school next year. The government has already set aside 10 billion shillings for the construction of over 10,000 junior secondary classrooms in schools across the country.
I talk about those challenges that learners were supposed to go and do a crusade. I think that's part of.
Stakeholders have questioned the capacity of learning institutions in the country to fully implement the new education system.
The KICD.
Principal Secretary for Education, Professor Fatuma Chege, while opening the annual Education Evidence for Action Conference, said they are working closely with the Teachers Service Commission to resolve staffing in schools.
2 directives were given by the President when he established the State Department in February this year. He said we must work with the Teachers Service Commission that addresses the human resource in teaching, and therefore that partnership is very important. We are doing that. The Teachers Service Commission is a member of our multi-agency technical committee. In fact, another directive on that same day was given that we must work with the Teachers Service Commission to address the issue of sharing resources.
On infrastructure, Professor Chege said the Ministries of Treasury, Interior and the Department of Public Works are addressing the issues of congestion by facilitating constructing more classrooms.
There will be double intake, meaning there are implications of infrastructural resources, and our findings, we are continuing to analyze them, and recently you are the ones who actually reported our CSE statement that Treasury has already given some funds to start infrastructural expansion.
In Baringo County, contractors have decried the tendering process of constructing more classrooms for the competence-based curriculum classrooms.
Vile tumeona the PQ hatuchafurahia sana kulingana na vile vitu imepanda saa hii, chuma, mbao, kila kitu imepanda.
Speaking after meeting government officials to plan the construction of the junior classrooms as ordered by the Ministry of Education, the contractor said the amount being offered is too little.
The national government through the Ministry of Education and also the Ministry of Interior and Coordination, that they review this price in terms of so that we get also value for money, and also so that we deliver quality work. Some people might even compromise the work because of the prices, which is what we have been told is that we need to give quality work.
Reporting for Lunchtime News, I am Stephanie Akiri.
Let's now shift focus to health matters, where a health crisis is looming in Busia County if the current financial crunch facing the county's health sector is not resolved. Some health institutions are already facing challenges in delivering medical services. Zainab Said reports.
Busia County Chief Officer for Health Dr. Isaac Omeri says the situation has been worsened by the little resources allocated to the department and the stalemate at the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, which has resulted in the delayed dispatch of drugs and other medical equipment.
Ukiangalia budget yetu ya last year, ya current financial year, ni pesa kidogo sana, 100 million iwezi kutosheleza mahitaji yote ya wananchi wa Busia. Kwa hivyo tunajaribu tu kwa kile kiwango tunaweza.
However, Linus Asiba, the Budget and Appropriation Committee Chair at Busia County Assembly, accuses the government of non-implementation of projects.
Hata jana tulikuwa na mkutano nao, hii department ya finance, and tuliwaambia at least to pull up their socks. Hiyo ndio ukweli, implementation is not up to date.
As the push and pull continues, the residents accuse the Governor Sospeter Ojamong's administration of poor service delivery.
Wao wagonjwa ambao wako kwa hospitali ya Busia kwa mfano, chakula walile wanapewa chakula duni kabisa. Kama wakiwa na bahati, saa zingine ni ugali na mboga throughout, ama saa zingine wanakosa chakula.
For Lunchtime News, I'm Zainab Said.
On health, the fight against bilharzia and intestinal worms in Kakamega County have received a major boost. This is after the World Health Organization donated drugs to combat the neglected tropical disease. The County Director of Public Health, William Okello, said findings from a study conducted in Kakamega indicate that cases of intestinal worms were found in 53 of the 60 wards in the county. He noted that activities which take place along the riverside and in swampy places in Kakamega predispose residents to infections. Young children are the most affected.
There are certain activities that do take place in our county along the riverside and even in swampy places, which is predisposing the population to schistosomiasis. It is important that we prevent the worms because in our young children, this one is a major cause of anemia, which prevents children from going to school. It is also a major cause of morbidity, one of the major causes of morbidity in the county.
Away from that, the Kenya National AIDS Council has raised concerns over the alarming rate of HIV and AIDS infections among school-going children in the country. The council has embarked on a sensitization exercise targeting 10 to 19 years old in vulnerable counties. The council's chair, Angeline Siparo, who was in Narok County to distribute, sanitary towels, said most girls are not in a safe environment, hence the need to educate them. Her sentiments were echoed by Sarah Tunai, the First Lady of Narok County, who also noted the need to address early pregnancies among school-going children, and especially girls in the region.
Not every child is in a secure environment. So when you're talking about prevalence, it's the fact that you also have children in difficult circumstances. You also have minors who have been married. No child should be getting pregnant, and no child should not be unable to finish school because of school fees.
Moving on, the national government has completed the construction of a new bridge in Bombi Magarini, Kilifi County, at a cost of 120 million shillings. The new bridge will allow people, small cars, ambulances and security vehicles get across the hippo and crocodile-infested River Galana.
Residents of Bombi Magarini, Kilifi County, are celebrating a new bridge after the previous one was swept away by floods in 2018. Top government officials, led by Engineer Hilary Nyanga, the Chief Structural Engineer of Public Works, and Magarini Member of Parliament Michael Kingi, inspected construction works and certified the project as complete.
Inspection of the completion of this footbridge, that all the works have been done according to the specifications in the contract. This is what I came to check before organizing for the final handing over, official handing over by higher authorities in the government.
Robert Mweni is among residents looking forward to better economic times following the construction of the bridge.
Tumeona zamani ilikuwa tunalegalega upande wa ukulima, lakini hii daraja itatusaidia juu itakuwa transport iko very flexible, itakuwa na rahisi, tutalima maboga na mengineyo na tuone tunapata riziki ambayo itaweza kufundisha watoto.
Reporting for Lunchtime News, I'm Purity Muse.
Very well, and from Kilifi we now cross over to Njue. As you can see on your screen, James Orengo, the Siaya Senator, is currently addressing people there in Njue, where the ODM brigade is currently holding a series of rallies. Let's listen in.
Wakikuyu walinyang'anywa mashamba. Wakikuyu walikuwa hawezi fanya kazi katika serikali ya mkoloni. Ndio kaona Wakikuyu wameingia kwa biashara. And I am sure, I can promise you that Raila Amolo Odinga will open this country for business. Na wafanyi biashara, utakuwa na kiongozi mwizi ama kiongozi ambayo ataweka ile uzito ya kodi uwezi kufanya kazi ama biashara. I know Raila Amolo Odinga will do it. Langu la pili ya kumaliza ni kwamba Raila Amolo Odinga started this struggle with people like Matiba, people like Rubia. His history with Central Kenya is one. And therefore I urge you countrymen, next year, together with what Uhuru Kenyatta has done with Raila Amolo Odinga, let us install Raila Amolo Odinga as the true heir of President Uhuru's legacy as the president, the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. Asanteni sana. Yeah, now
James Orengo there, live from Njue, where, of course, the ODM brigade is leading the Azimio la Umoja campaigns, and that report takes us to our first commercial break. But don't go away, we still have more news. I can see Victor Ashali live from Sabatia Butere. We have Edward Rono Salma, and I can also see Mahamud Adan, Kevin Matasi, Panklas George, Gaetano Kubasu. You are watching. Let's have that break.
They recently won the Afrima Awards 2021 as the best group in African jazz. The collective sounds of their new EP describe African heritage, love, growth, culture, expression, uniqueness, and togetherness. The Homesphere Band will be live and it's gonna be lit. Only on Easy Friday with Shiksha Aurora, right here on KBC Channel 1.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email newsroom@kbc.co.ke, call 0723 892 654 or 0734 780 124.
Welcome back and thanks for keeping it KBC Lunchtime News. Let's now plunge into the world of business, where the government is set to begin distribution of 60 metric tons of seeds to be used for commercial tree production. The Kenya Forestry Research Institute led initiative seeks to use commercial forestry to push Kenya's forest cover to 10%. KEFRI is working to develop technological strategies and frameworks to ensure provision of improved tree seeds for commercial purposes.
Kenya has a 7.2% forest cover, which is below the UN recommended minimum of 10%. The government is now looking to commercialize tree production in efforts to boost forest cover. KEFRI aims to produce 2 billion seedlings every year. During the Kenya Commercial Forestry Investment Conference and Expo, Forestry Principal Secretary Dr. Chris Kiptoo noted that KEFRI stores now have 60 metric tons of seeds which will be used for commercial purposes.
We hope to launch these 60 metric tons of seed distribution before end of the year. And maybe what is of great importance to us is how we incentivize this, because incentives are important. How do we make our farmers be able to engage in commercial forest?
The director of KEFRI, Joshua Cheboyo, said the institute will continue monitoring market and trade in forest products as they aim to place Kenya in a good ecosystem position.
We shall continue monitoring markets and trade in forest products, and now we can position this country in this particular ecosystem, strengthening collaboration with project and financing institutions who are here to ensure that we develop products which can be financed in the forest sector. Improve our seed production and processing and quality system to ensure the best seed qualities are available to our stakeholders.
He also said that KEFRI will strengthen operations in projects with financing institutions as they share key research output on commercial forestry. Reporting for Lunchtime News, I am Teresa Mutai.
Moving on, women in business have been urged to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, which is poised to generate potential gains of up to $450 billion. The Organization of Women in International Trade say the infrastructure and policy environment is being improved to ensure women, who make up over 70% of cross-border traders, can conduct their business with ease across the continent.
The African Continental Free Trade Area is set to drive larger gains in earnings for business women. The Africa Women Trade Conference encourages women entrepreneurs to trade cross-continentally, taking advantage of the AfCFTA's enormous potential for trade within the regional and continental markets. Stakeholders say there's a need to focus on Africa's investment opportunities while creating an opportunity for women entrepreneurs and business leaders to meet with investors.
Work through our chapters, through partners on the ground, because they know the women on the ground. The international office sits in Washington, but we have people on the board from different parts of the country.
Experts attending the conference say it is critical to establish what the AfCFTA means for women in terms of their participation in cross-border trade, value chains, public procurement from the onset. They also underscore women and youth as key stakeholders in continental economic development.
So it will be easier to trade, it will be less complex. So there are very many capacity building programs. There's a free online course that ITC is providing to help you to understand the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Africa's informal sector accounts for 85% of the continent's total economic activity, while women account for 90% of the labor force in the informal sector, making up 70% of the continent's informal traders.
Stanbic Bank Kenya made 5.1 billion shillings in net profit during the first 9 months of this year, representing a 43% year-on-year increase. Elsewhere, Family Bank Group has reported 2.6 billion shillings in pre-tax profit during the first 9 months of this year, representing a growth of 76.9%, driven by interest income.
During the first 9 months of this year, Family Bank's net interest income, largely from loans and advances, increased by 24.2% to 5.7 billion shillings, in line with increased lending, as the loan book similarly expanded by 13.9% to 65.1 billion shillings. Customer deposits grew by 17.4% year-on-year to close at 81.5 billion shillings, while other total assets grew by 18.9% to 107.2 billion shillings. Family Bank's total non-interest income increased to 2.3 billion shillings, with income from other fees and commissions closing at 1.5 billion shillings, equivalent to 17.1% growth. On the other hand, operating expenses marginally increased by 4.2% to 5.3 billion shillings. Meanwhile, Stanbic Bank Kenya has registered a 5.1 billion shillings profit after tax during the first 9 months of this year, marking a significant increase of 43% from 3.6 billion shillings last year. The lender says their performance was anchored on implementation of various interventions that have enabled the banks and its clients to weather the volatile environment caused by the pandemic. Stanbic Bank Kenya says customer loans grew by 11% to 176.6 billion shillings. The lender's cost, excluding loan loss provisions, rose 15%. Stanbic Bank Kenya says its South Sudan subsidiary remained profitable as it maintains intermediate foreign currency flows for its clients and keeps costs under control, ensuring that business continues to be transactional and liability-led. The lender plans to keep investing in digital capabilities in South Sudan to increase reach to customers and reduce operating costs.
Further afield, Tesla plans to invest up to $188 million to expand production capacity at its Shanghai factory that will allow it to employ 4,000 more people at the site. Here are more details of this and other stories from across the world. Yo.
Company to manufacture cars and offer competitive and attractive prices for consumers. Meanwhile, Tanzania has lifted the ban on exports of forest raw products on conditions including vina and sap from the patula pine tree until June next year. The goal was to see that the forestry sector brings out productivity to its producers. Due to lifting of the ban, the tourism minister has allowed 187 containers of forest products at the Dar port to be exported and ordered owners of the containers outside the port to observe export permit procedures from the ministry. Finally, Ugandan farmers together with other stakeholders in the agricultural sector have tasked the government to consider reviewing the seed policy 2013 and include forage seed systems as a way of improving livestock nutrition and production in Uganda. They are aiming at empowering small-scale farmers and all livestock farmers to establish high-quality yielding and drought-tolerant forages. Uganda's agricultural ministry was urged to expedite the review of the policy and include forages given to the changing climatic conditions and pasture crisis in the country. Reporting for Lunchtime News, Macau McBrien.
Apologies for that mix-up of clips in our earlier story, but this should be the right clip for that. Tesla plans to invest up to $188 million to expand production capacity at its Shanghai factory that will allow it to employ 4,000 more people at the site. Here are more details of this and other stories from across the world.
The expansion will allow Tesla to add 4,000 staff, taking the number of people the plant can employ to 19,000. There will be no change to the models the factory currently produces, according to the filing, which also did not specify how much production capacity will be increased. The automaker's China sales are surging even though regulatory pressure is mounting following consumer disputes over product safety and scrutiny over how the firm handles data. Meanwhile, British car output fell by an annual 41% 1.4% last month to its lowest October level since 1956 as the global lack of semiconductor chips and a planned closure hit the sector. This led to a total of 64,729 cars rolling off British production lines. The fall reflected the global supply chain problems and Honda's permanent closure of its factory. CMMT Chief Executive Mike House stated that Britain's automotive sector is resilient, but with COVID-19 resurges, the immediate challenges in keeping the industry operational are immense. Finally, a government body has taken over China's Evergrande Group soccer stadium with a view to selling it as the debt-laden property developer scrambles to meet liabilities. Evergrande has been struggling to meet repayments on over $300 billion in debt. However, it has halted construction due to lack of capital and ceded control to authorities which plan to sell the stadium or in the absence of buyers.
Back home, it's a sigh of relief for private transporters plying the Lamu-Witu-Garsen road after the Coast Regional Commissioner John Elungata gave them the green light to undertake night travels. The ban on night travel will, however, still be observed by public service vehicles. Zainab Said with more details.
Speaking during a baraza in Witu, the Coast Security boss John Elungata said the ban on night travel will remain in place even as security is heightened in the area. He said the night travel ban on PSV vehicles, which has been in place since 2014, will remain to further strengthen security around the county.
Kwa sababu tunajua wale watu wanalenga sana wasafiri. Mimi ningekubaliana na yule mzee aliyesema kwamba magari ya kubeba vyakula, kubeba vitu vya ujenzi, vitu vya dukani vinaweza kwenda kwa wakati wote. Lakini usafiri mtatuia radhi kwa wiki mbili hivi tutazame. Kwa sababu tunaelekea katika ile msimu wa Christmas.
Urging the residents to get vaccinated against COVID-19, Elungata further urged the public to report any terrorist-linked activities.
Sasa pale mlimani, naona mlimani Baure hapo, Basuba, kuna mtu hapo. Kazi yake anakuja kuunda vilipuzi hapa Mokoe, anasafirisha kule kwa maagizo. Tutengezee, anasafirisha. Tutengezee, anasafirisha. Mtu kama huyo si asemwe.
Lamu West MP Stanley Mudhama also urging residents to remain vigilant.
KDF wakitaka kuchukua, mimi nakubaliana na hiyo kama kiongozi wao. Lakini ningeliomba, kwa sababu katika gazeti notice imewekwa pale, utusimamie kupitia kwa ofisi yako. Hiyo jambo kwanza utusaidie isiende public direct, kabla wapite kwa ofisi yako, niposa uwaeleze vile mambo ilivyo. Such that tupate wale wao wananchi wasivurushwe completely, watolewe pale. Wanaweza kubaliana maybe wapewe small portion, wakatiwe, wapewe kazile watapewa, na zile zingine KDF wachukue.
For Lunchtime News, I'm Zainab Said.
Time to play now. And National Men's Rugby Sevens team Shujaa lost their opening match of the HSBC Dubai Sevens to USA after a 14-7 loss in their Group B match opener. USA started the match on a high tempo and took the lead through Steve Tomansin, who scored a try and converted to give the Americans a